never been the subject of an event here before. I've sat in that seat before, but never this one.
Get ready, get ready. I'd like to start by reminding us all that we meet on the lands of the Kulin Nation, and I pay my respect to their elders past and present. This always was and always will be Aboriginal land.
Just the one, but good for you. Right on.
I assume everybody here knows the ridiculous success story that is Meshel Laurie, but in the theme of unselfish joy, which she encourages in her book, we're going to talk about her list of achievements and we're going to celebrate them. So Meshel Laurie is a stand-up comedian of some 20 years' experience, a radio and television broadcaster and writer. She's currently co-host of Matt and Michelle in the Morning on Kiss FM and a regular panellist on 10's The Project. In 2013, Meshel released her first book, a memoir titled The Fence Painting Fortnight of Destiny, and she continues to blog at meshellaurie.com. The site is also dedicated to connecting charitable people with charitable organisations and fighting racism. She's also a regular contributor to Sunday Life magazine. Meshel is proudly an official ambassador for His Holiness, the 14th Dalai Lama in Australia, and for Reconciliation Australia. And just today, she received a most exciting email inviting her to be on the board of the Dalai Lama in Australia, which I think is Buddhist goals, isn't it?
It is for me. It absolutely is. It's my Olympics. Thank you. I'm very excited about that.
So just to let you know how tonight's going to work, I'm going to ask some questions, but then there will be time for you to ask questions as well, and there will be ushers with roaming mics coming around. So if you have a question at the end, please put up your hand. And if I can politely ask that we do stick to questions, not speeches, just in the interest of time and everyone getting a chance to ask their questions. Now, Meshel, I want to start off by asking you, I've read the whole book. I'm not Buddhist, obviously. I'm not in the middle of a breakup. And I should say, when I was reading this at home, my husband looked at me and said, getting some tips on breaking up. So I'm not Buddhist, I'm not in the middle of a breakup, but I bloody loved this book. I got so much out of it, which really surprised me.
You and I have this crucial thing in common, which is that we were both raised Christian in suburban Australia. And at this roughly the same age, sort of early adulthood, we went searching for the religion that connected and made sense to us. And you found Islam and I found Buddhism. So,
but why do I get so much out of this book?
Because Buddhism's better. No. I win. No. Because you know why? It's the same Buddhism when you boil it down, and His Holiness the Dalai Lama says this all the time. All the great religions teach the same things. It's all about kindness, respect for others, respect for yourself, trying to be helpful, trying not to hurt people. So it's relatable. It's very relatable in terms of Jesus' teachings and the teachings of Islam. That's all right, baby. I think that's why.
I also sort of got the sense that the book was very much about, not just about breakups, but about the human condition.
Yeah.
It was about all those archetypal human issues that all of us experience, breakup or not, anger, jealousy, fear. Is that, so while the book is about breakups, it's about a lot more than that, isn't it?
Yeah, I just realised that breakups were a really great prism through which to talk about Buddhist teachings, because breakups are pretty common. Most of us have been through a breakup. This was my first at 40 though, which is pretty sad. But for most of us, it's relatable. We tend to have those same feelings and behave in those same crazy ways when we're frightened and confused and all of that in breakups.
Was writing this book part of your own Buddhist practice?
Yeah.
I remember I read in your book about the Eightfold Path, and I wondered if this was part of your right speech or right action. Tell us about how this was a Buddhist discipline for you, writing the book.
Well, it kept me deeply in Buddhism every day, which was great, researching and trying to find the best Buddhist teaching to apply to a particular relationship-related woe. And so that was very therapeutic for me as I was living through relationship-related woes at the time. It was just a great discipline to get home from commercial breakfast radio every day and immerse myself in Buddhism. It was wonderful.
Now, asking you why you wrote the book seems a bit obvious. I mean, you wrote it because you were going through a breakup, but it's a very personal thing. Most people would just live it. They might implement their own spiritual practice into their life. But you decided to write a very honest book about it. Why write the book?
Because I couldn't find any. You know, when I was breaking up, I remember I had this process where I tried to save my crying for nighttime when the kids were in bed. And I'd be lying in bed just absolutely beside myself, just thinking, how do you get through this? I've never been through a breakup before. I just didn't know what to do, and looking for books. And there's so many books about how to stay together. But then I couldn't find any books about, like, you're doing the right thing, you know you're doing the right thing in breaking up, and these are some ways to look at it and get you through, make you feel a little bit better tomorrow and a little bit better the day after that, and give you some hope that it will lift.
And so you were just trying to give that to some other people?
Yeah, definitely, and to myself. You know?
Yes.
For next time.
Were there any surprises for you in writing this book?
Yeah, heaps. A lot that was about thinking back to the happy times in our relationship and realising in retrospect how unhealthy some of those habits were that we developed in that time, realising how I had put a lot of pressure on Adrienne, my ex-husband, to take care of my emotional well-being, and sort of made that his responsibility. It is. It's really not, Barb. No, your happiness is your responsibility. No one else can make you happy and keep you happy but you. And so, it's a terrible shock to the system, isn't it? It's horrible. And so I realised that we sort of had this deal where I took on all the financial responsibility in the relationship, but then I could come home and stomp around the house and be obnoxious and grumpy and just demand that he fix that. And that seemed like a reasonable trade-off for a while. But then when we had kids and we had all this other emotional baggage in our life and other people needing that patience and needing that nurturing, he just didn't have any left for me anymore. So suddenly I felt like, well, I'm still paying for everything. Why aren't you taking care of me like you used to? It felt really unfair. So it was really interesting to go back and look at that through Buddhist principles and to take responsibility for my part in that, the imbalance in that and the sort of silliness of that.
And how does Adrienne feel about all this now? Can he look back with the same clarity that you can?
I think so. I think he's doing really well. You know, he's really blossomed since we separated, which my father likes to mention
Point
often.
out.
Yeah. Geez, he's doing well, isn't he?
Thanks, Dad.
Yeah. So, I mean, he's always been, I think, probably more emotionally mature than me. Always. He's a little bit older than me. When we met, I was in my early 20s. He was in his late 20s. So he was always a step, and he'd had quite a bit of relationship experience and I hadn't. So I think he's always been ahead of me in that regard, and he still is. He's a very genuinely soulful, uncomplicated, clear-thinking person. He's actually a great Buddhist, even though he doesn't think he is. He doesn't think he's a Buddhist, but I think he's pretty great at it.
You wrote this book, Buddhism for Breakups, in a time when there's a lot of, atheism is pretty popular now. Did you ever worry that you wouldn't find a market for a book that's so obviously about a faith tradition?
I don't ever do things to find markets, honestly. That's why, I've got a job. That's why I get up early and go to the radio every day. Everything else I do because I love it. I do podcasts. This is why I'm so busy and too busy, is all of these other things I do because I love them. And I can never choose anything to let go. So when a publisher said, yeah, we'll publish it, I was like, great. I don't care if I never make a cent on it. I just to have permission to do it was what excited me.
Was it your own therapy writing the book?
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely during the process of working through it, our breakup became nicer, kinder, gentler, and my ex was kind of like, what are you on? All of a sudden. But I talk about that in the book too. Like when you don't have to react to a person the same way just because you always have reacted to them that way. And it's sort of sneaky, really, because when they push your buttons and you don't react in the same way, it's a really big victory for you. And it really rattles them. Yeah. that's quite satisfying as well, you know. When suddenly you're just like really dignified about everything. It's like, it's very, it feels really great. So yeah, I was able to do all of that suddenly, quite suddenly through the breakup. I deliberately didn't look at Buddhism for a long time when the marriage was going badly, because I knew what it would tell me to do and I didn't want to do it.
Yeah. It's hard to face.
It would say detach. And I was holding on with everything I had.
Yes. So Buddhism was sort of holding up a mirror to you.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
What do you think is the thing that non-Buddhists most misunderstand about Buddhism?
It depends. On a simplistic level, I think people think the Dalai Lama is Buddha reincarnated and he's a magician and can make lightning and stuff like that.
I think that's the X-Men.
Yeah, I know. But then on a deeper level, and I did this too, when you start to first read about Buddhism, you can sort of feel like it's really nihilistic and it doesn't want me to love anybody and it doesn't want me to have close relationships with people and it's really miserable. You know, you need to read beyond that to understand, no. Buddha never wanted us not to love people or not to have relationships. He just thought it was unhealthy for us to be really graspy with other people. And that's attachment that we've been talking about. So Buddhism is definitely about loving and connection with other people.
Yeah, that's actually something I wanted to ask you, you know, as I read the book, I wondered about that too, that you talk in the book about how attachment's a problem and it leads to a lot of suffering. So how do we find that balance between attachment and connection? How can we love people fully without being attached to them?
Again, it has to come from ourselves. It has to come from our self-confidence, from our love of ourselves and our comfort in the world. If I am a comfortable, confident person, I can love you, Susan, as I do, without feeling like I have to be texting you all the time and emailing you all the time and going, God, Susan hasn't returned my text in 2 days. What is wrong with her? Maybe she doesn't like me anymore. She's up herself since her husband's been on the project. Whatever. So it comes back to me and my confidence in the world and being able to look at myself in the mirror and say, I'm happy with who I am. I'm a busy woman. Susan's a busy woman. We are friends. When we get together, we're happy to see each other, but I can't grasp at you. When you grasp at someone, if I was, texting you constantly and going, Susan, where are you? Your reaction would be, oh, God, get off me. So that people push us away when we grasp at them. It's actually counterintuitive. It's counterproductive. So I have to find the confidence within myself to not take it personally if someone's not returning my text straight away, or if my now ex-husband is a bit quiet that day. Maybe it's got nothing to do with me. Instead of me going, what's wrong? No, seriously, what's wrong? Why won't you talk to me? Oh, God, it's got nothing to do with me. I don't know.
It's tricky because so much of, I think, Western conversations about love tells us that we need to make ourselves vulnerable to the other person. We need to make ourselves vulnerable, so open ourselves up to the potential of being hurt. But then it sounds like from what you're saying, if we, with not getting attached, that sort of, there is no vulnerability to getting hurt, because if someone has to move on, then you're okay about that.
Yeah, so I can open myself up without vulnerability. Imagine that. And actually,
how does that work?
Well, when we first met, Adrienne and I sort of was really good at it, because I remember saying to him the first time, hey, I just want to tell you I love you and you don't have to say it back and you don't have to do anything. I just want you to know that. And whatever you want to do with that's your business. And I meant that, So I forgot how to do that for a really long time where he was concerned. But again, it's just about accepting this is the only world I can change and I can affect. I am the only person whose behaviour I have any control over. I'm the only person whose heart I have any control over. And I need to take control of that and take responsibility for that. And then I can be open to everybody. That's the dream. The Buddhist dream is to treat everybody the same. His Holiness says, treat everybody as though they're your mother. Think of how much you love your mother. And if you can love every single person that much, that's successful Buddhism. That's being connected to everybody.
So does that then mean that you don't have any people who are more favourite to you than others?
Ideally, of course I do.
Yeah.
But ideally.
Right.
That's what I try to do. And that's where the practice becomes really interesting, when you zero in on someone, maybe someone you work with or something that you actually don't like. And you think, okay.
You're my mother, you're my mother,
Yeah,
you're my mother.
I am really going to make this work with you, you know. I am going to find things I like about you. I'm going to find common ground with you. I'm going to start relating to you in a more generous way, because I'm probably giving off vibes that tell you I don't like you. So, you know, I'm going to, and it's incredible when you can do that with someone you don't like and see your relationship change. It's really powerful in the way that you then relate to people you do like.
I was going to get this to the end. We're jumping all over the place, as you can see, but I'm going to get to it now because it feels like a natural place. You're in the monastery of motherhood.
Yeah.
Then how do you reconcile that? You obviously love your children uniquely. So how does that work with loving everybody equally?
Well, look, you know, here's the great thing about Buddhism. I think if we asked a monk, he would look at us like we're a pair of knuckleheads and go, of course you love your children more. Like, they're just so pragmatic and sensible, you know. Oftentimes we Western, I don't know if Muslim converts are the same, but we Western Buddhists tend to go a bit overboard.
Yeah, we call it convertitis.
Yeah, right. So we're like so earnest about everything, and you know, we just take it so far. And then you'll go and see a 90-year-old Tibetan man who'll go, what? What are you talking about? Of course you can kill the mice in your house. What are you talking, you know? But we think, but I can't take a life. So so they would say, you know what? We're not aiming to be perfect Buddhists. We're aiming to be good people. Just do your best. Just do your best. Just try every day, and that is good. And no one's going to ask you to like me as much as you like your kids. That's fine.
So kids are allowed to be special.
Totally.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Another thing that you spoke about in the book that I found really interesting was that in Buddhism, there is a difference between happiness and peace.
Yes.
Tell us about that.
Well, happiness changes. I mean, I think it all boils down to impermanence. Everything is changing all the time. Everyone is changing all the time. The great news about that is that bad times will pass. The bad news is that good times will pass too. And happiness on that superficial level will pass. Things that make me happy. This coffee was making me really happy a while ago, but now I've talked too much, it's gone cold. It's not going to make me that happy anymore. You know, happiness is just kind of ephemeral, and it moves and changes. But peace is peace. Peace can belong in times of tragedy, in times of sadness, in times of elation. It's a truer friend, I think, peace. It's more reliable. And it's obviously it's deeper, it's more meaningful. I think you get more out of peace. It's more of an achievement, don't you think? When you're feeling peaceful and you think, yeah, I did that. And if you can feel peaceful in troubled times, again, that's good Buddhism. You're killing it if you're doing that. That's good.
So then it seems like the things that would lead us to happiness are actually quite different to the things that would lead us to peace, or the things that are sold to us that would lead us to happiness.
Yeah.
So much of what is sold to us in society that will make us happy is actually the opposite of what would be peaceful. It would actually encourage maybe agitation or envy.
Yes, and overwork and then exhaustion and, yeah, all of that. What would make me happy is to live in a big house overlooking the ocean with my kids. That's what I think. But to get that, I have to live a life that's really difficult and tiring and where I never see my kids, and that's not peaceful.
So then what are the paths to peace?
But just connecting with yourself. Just connecting with yourself and withdrawing from all of that, from that societal expectation of what you should want, who you should be, what you should be striving for, and connect with what it really is in you. And it's different for all of us. You know, our friend Georgie Coughlin, it's horses for her. She's got a horse. She gets up early at 6 a.m. and goes horse riding, you know, and that's a peaceful place for her. People are still telling her all the time she should be living in Melbourne and getting more TV work. But through trial and error, she's realised that actually doesn't make me happy. It doesn't make me peaceful. Being in the country makes me peaceful.
You spoke, getting back to this idea of attachment, you spoke in the book about some of the toxic female friendships that you have had. And it sounds like now you have good female friendships, but you seem to sort of keep them a bit at arm's length. Would that be a correct reading?
Yeah. Yes.
And is that to protect you from attachment?
I don't feel like I'm protecting myself. I feel like I'm just conscious. I'm just conscious of my habit of relying on other people to make me happy and to make me feel good about myself and make me feel secure and make me feel worthy. You know, I always wanted someone who wanted to be with me all the time. Poor Adrienne. Can you believe it? No wonder he divorced me. You know, that made me feel good about myself. If someone wants to be with me all the time, okay, I must be an okay person. So this is my practice, my working through this process of feeling like I'm an okay person without having to have someone there all the time to prove it to me.
And how do women respond to that? Do they feel that you're keeping them at arm's length?
I don't think so. I think now that I'm a mother and most of my friends are mothers of small children as well, it's really like we're just too busy. It's sort of perfect in its way. You know, I've got lots of friends who we just see each other once a month, text once a month maybe. It's really that works for me. Look, to be honest, I do worry that I'm isolating myself a little bit and I'm going to end up a cat lady, but I don't know. I'm just working through it at the moment. It feels good at the moment. It feels peaceful.
That's the ideal,
Yeah.
isn't it? You gave this great example in the book about, it was in the chapter on mindfulness, and you spoke about how you were at the airport and the woman behind the counter thought you were having a go at her and got really grumpy. And you said in that moment, I could have snapped back at her, or I could just go, well, I'm just going to be in the moment. I'm going to be mindful and go, well, she's having a bad day. Anyway, what gate am I in? And moving on. And you spoke about the same principle in your relationship with your ex-husband and how you could either snap back or you could just go, you know, that's his issue. I'm just going to be in the moment. Could that have the potential to somehow allow someone like me to continue doing really annoying and wrong things, and then when people legitimately try to tell me you're being a jerk, I could be like, well, that's your problem. Yeah. I'm here in the moment.
Yeah.
It's not about me at all. You're just having a bad day. How do we do that? How do we be mindful and in the moment, but also take on legitimate criticism?
Again, I think, you know, there's always room for pragmatism and for being sensible. And I talk in the book about, you know, when you find yourself thinking, why is everyone an idiot today? That's probably, if I'm saying that to myself, that means I have the problem.
Yeah.
You know?
Yes.
Of course everyone's not an idiot today. That's ridiculous. It must be me having the problem. So, you know, I guess when people take the time to say to you, I can't imagine them saying this to you, Susan. Why would anyone? What do you think you're doing
Don't
to people?
you work with my husband?
No, yeah, I do.
He's quite open when I need to be told.
Well, that's perfect. I mean, that's what a great relationship is about.
Yeah.
There was a comedian who used to say, you know, if I hadn't gotten married, I never would have known all the things that were wrong with me. And that is a big part of an intimate relationship, isn't it? Is having that person who can look you in the eye and go, you know, that's really unpleasant the way you do that.
Yeah.
And again, it's up to you to choose what to do with that information. And some people can really abuse that.
Yeah.
Some women can, you know, and men can find themselves in relationships where someone is consistently putting them down. There is no golden answer to this, unfortunately. There is only, all we can do is kind of piece the puzzle together and stand back and look at it and try and figure out for ourselves what's going on in this situation and who am I, and am I being the best person I can be? And that's what I mean about writing this book and tracking back through our relationship. I realised, oh, wow, this puzzle looks a lot different to the way I thought it looked.
So sometimes you need hindsight.
Definitely, and you need space. You need to stand back sometimes. And that's what meditation is all about too, you know, like very rarely in this life do we have a moment with ourselves. we fill our minds with things, with stimulus, with other people, with TV, with phones, with everything, entertaining ourselves. And meditation is this moment, this opportunity to sit and literally listen to yourself, listen to your breathing, and then sort of sink right down into yourself. And it's fascinating what you find down there. It's so interesting. I can't recommend it highly enough. I know it sounds like a bit wanky, but I find it really powerful. If you can get a practice going, sometimes it just takes a couple of times before you really just hear yourself differently.
Tell us about your spiritual practice.
Again, since I've had kids, it's, oh my God, it used to be really intense. It used to be really gung-ho and like probably 45 minutes a day, and I had an altar and I had offerings every day and I tended it twice a day and all that kind of stuff. Now my altar is a few bibs and bobs on top of a wardrobe that my kids can't reach. And it's really the most important thing is every morning setting my intention. In Buddhism, intention is everything. What you do is one thing, why you're doing it is the most important thing. So every day I set my intention, what's my intention today? And at the moment, my intention is to be positive about my early mornings because I'm really hating them. So my intention when I stand in the bathroom is, okay, just really stay focused on the gratitude, on how lucky I am to have this job, what it means for my life that I have this job. Everyone I work with is nice. Okay, focus on that and not grumble. Yeah? So that's my intention at the moment. Then I drive to work and I meditate for 5 minutes in the car park before I go upstairs. That's pretty much it. My dad's been sick lately, so I've done it. When he was unconscious, I did a fair bit of chanting at his bedside when he didn't know. So that was nice. It sort of flexed another muscle in that direction. I don't normally get that time to sit and chant and do prayers and stuff. That was nice. He's better now, so I can't do it anymore.
Is there anything hard about being Buddhist?
Yeah, the constant self-reflection and being honest with yourself's really hard sometimes. And as I say, I deliberately ignored Buddhism when my marriage was really falling apart because I knew what it would tell me. And it's like having that really wise friend who sometimes you think, oh, I don't want to talk to you because I know what you're going to tell me to do. And I don't want to do it today, I want to eat carbs today and I want to just do fun stuff today. I don't want to be a good person. It's like that.
Yeah. How long have you been Buddhist now?
I would say 11 years seriously.
Yep.
I started studying 11 years ago and going to a centre, but about 20 years ago I started reading Buddhism. And at that time I thought, oh man, I wasn't ready. I was like, yeah, I get it, but I'm not ready to be that person yet. I want to be attached. I want to be, I don't want to be focused on impermanence, and I want to live in a fantasy world that one day I'll be famous and on television, and I want it. So in a funny way, you kind of need that selfishness, I think, for ambition. You sort of, I don't regret that period of time of ignoring the truth because it did push me forward in my career, but I'm glad I'm in it now.
So I wondered, how do you, TV land or media land, the entertainment industry, it can be a lot of things that Buddhism's not.
Yeah.
It can be shallow and selfish, bitchy.
Yeah.
How do you reconcile, or how do you stay true to your own moral compass while being successful in that industry?
It's perfect. It's actually perfect because I tend to approach things with humour. I just laugh everything off. I just don't take anything seriously. And so I try to be polite about it and not let everyone else know that I'm really not taking them seriously or their big drama seriously. But in my first few years in radio, I was just so focused on the minutiae, on every tiny detail. I had to be all over it and controlling it. And now I'm just like, whatever, guys. Whatever. If I think something's better than something else, I'll say so. But when things get hectic and crazy and when everyone's taking something so seriously that's so not important in the actual world, like a broken neon sign that says "is list" instead of "kiss list," and they're freaking out. I just kind of, in my heart, I just have a little laugh and think, it's fine, guys. It's really fine. It's sort of easy.
Yeah, so it helps.
Yeah, it's great. It just keeps me out of it, out of the drama.
How have you changed as a Buddhist since 11 years ago when you started taking it seriously? How are you, the Meshel the Buddhist, different now to who you were then?
You should ring up the guys I used to work with in Brisbane before. And my friend Andrew's here, Adrienne, and they will remember what I just don't want to swear, what kind of person I was, let's say. In those days, those guys worked with a different person. And we were doing breakfast radio as well. So it was every morning they saw me at 5:30 in the morning and I was a nightmare. And just like bossy and angry and determined and I'm just a completely different person now. And my mother actually says, you know what, it's the best thing you ever did. I used to be a really angry person. I'm not an angry person anymore. I think she's thinking mostly of when I was 16 and yelling around the house and stuff. But, yeah, I'm a completely different person. And for the better, definitely. Although I still kept a little bit of that at home, unfortunately, and sort of Adrienne, my ex-husband, was the last person to benefit from it. But he's benefiting from it now.
I know you get asked this all the time, but we have to ask. I think you know what I'm going to ask about the book because everyone asks you about this thing. You do, Adrienne obviously has to feature very prominently, and you are not nasty about him, but you are very open about him. Mm-hmm. How does he feel about this?
He hasn't read it. He's just not...
Because he's letting go.
Yeah, that's what I mean. He's such a good Buddhist. He's just like, whatever, babe. And he's never listened to me on breakfast radio because once, very long ago, he half heard me say something, and when I got home, he was really upset and thought I'd said he did something. And so we made this deal then, just don't listen, mate. Just don't listen. He was like, great. So... He, at the end of the day, he said, I trust you. I trust you not to throw me under the bus. And he just doesn't care. Adrienne lives in the clouds, which I used to find really attractive when we first got together. I don't anymore. But, you know, he just lives in another world. He's an artist, man. He's just like, whatever. But the other week, his photo did pop up on the Daily Mail website, which they pinched one from Instagram, which is my own fault because I put his photo on Instagram. But, you know, I didn't think twice about it. Who does? And then there he is on the Daily Mail. I thought, oh, my God, he will freak out if someone tells him about that. So far, he doesn't know, so don't tell him if you run into him.
Do you want to say that straight down that Facebook Live?
He won't watch that. He's not watching that. That's fine. Yeah, just don't tell him about the book, guys. He doesn't know about it.
What could go wrong with this plan?
He trusts me. And also he knows that Buddhism is not about, that the book is not about him and his foibles, it's about mine. That's the point of it. The Buddhism's not about fixing other people, changing other people, pointing out what's wrong with other people. It's all about being a better person yourself.
Would you say that you guys had an ugly breakup?
No, not at all. No, because, I mean, initially I just was so desperate to hold on to him. You know, I was probably ugly from that, because there's sort of ugly crying. And it was ugly humiliating. But no, it was never vicious. It was never... Because the fact of the matter is I still love the guy a lot. And I think he's finally come back around to loving me again lately, in a nice way. But, yeah, so... no, neither of us are that kind of person. We've got kids, so we knew we were strapped together forever in some way. And also, you know what? His parents have been divorced since he was in his teens, and they're such a great example. They're
of a
friendly.
Successful divorce.
Yeah, they're friendly. They're at every family event. They're friends with each other's partners. So we had that influence.
Like I said at the start, I got so much out of this book, even though I'm not Buddhist and, you know, I'm not going through a breakup. But there would be a lot of people today that say religion just causes a lot of problems.
Yeah.
What do you think are the biggest failings of religion in the world today? How are religions just not doing a good job?
Well, look, again, I'll take a leaf out of the book of His Holiness, the Dalai Lama, who always these days, wherever he goes, has a multi-faith moment, ceremony or whatever. He's very, very focused on the things that unite us. And as I said before, he's focused on the fact that at the heart, all of our religions are teaching us the same thing. So I think this focus on what makes us different is an issue. And I just went and visited him in India, me and 150,000 other people, by the way, it wasn't just me.
An intimate trip.
Yeah, an intimate visit. And he often talks about how India to him is this miracle place where lots of different religions live together side by side in villages. And when I was there, I got it. I was like, yeah, okay. You guys are really focused on what unites you, not what divides you. Yeah. And I will say, you know, I'm conscious of your particular situation, that I always think that when I was a small child, the IRA were out and about, and my mum as a Catholic would cry at night time when she saw the news, you know, of them killing innocent people in London, people out drinking in pubs and all that stuff we still see today with other groups. And she would cry and say, they're not Catholics. How can they say they're Catholics? So that was very meaningful and informative to me as a growing child, that anyone can call themselves any religion. There are people calling themselves Buddhists in Burma right now, killing Muslims. You can call yourself anything you want, but if you're not actually following the core fundamental teachings of religion, then you're nothing. You're tetherless. You're like a kite that's gotten loose, you know?
Yeah. What do you think is if you could condense this to one important message for the reader, what would it be?
Taking responsibility for your own emotions. They are your business. They are your problem. They are only yours to change. And that's hard and that's annoying, you know?
Yeah. No one wants to do that. It's not comfortable to do that.
I want someone to make me happy. It's not possible.
Yeah.
It's not possible. Certainly, you know, I'm sure we've all been in a situation where we've tried to make someone happy and it's impossible. You know?
It's a tricky one, though. I was thinking about that as I was driving here today, and again, I wondered, how do I reconcile that, this Buddhist idea? Because I know when I'm with my husband or my kids, I feel so happy. And I think within myself, you make me so happy.
Yeah.
So what would actually be the correct thing to say then? You know what I mean?
I understand what you mean. Again, you know, I think that when you're with your husband and your kids, you're just just right in your true self. You're just allowed to be yourself. You know, you're not trying to represent Islam to Australia. You know, you're not trying to be a university lecturer. You're not trying to be a sort of contemporary woman having it all. You know, I mean, that's when your relationship's really firing, isn't it? When you know that for me, I'm just wondering, as soon as I get the bintang singlet on at home, the kids go, okay, we're relaxing. It's funny, that's like my uniform, you know, that means I'm not going anywhere, no one's coming here. Yeah. We're just chilling out today, guys. And that's when you're just really in.
But I suppose that's peace, isn't it?
It's just
not
peace.
Happiness, and that's the...
Yeah, because I'm sure your kids don't always make you happy. I'm sure there are moments where you think, you are killing me, actually. But you always feel that peace with them, because particularly when you're at home, even when they're squabbling and all that, at least they're home and they're safe and you're all together, and there is that peace of, we're safe and we're in here together.
What Buddhist teachings do you try to teach your kids, or how do you try to model being a good Buddhist mother to your children?
It's really hard, isn't it? I think Christians have it really easy.
Shout out to any Christians.
Yeah, guys. I mean, I just think when your dog dies and you can tell the kids it's gone to heaven and you'll see it again one day, that's pretty easy. When our dog dies and I have to try and teach them, they're 6, and I'm trying to teach them about, you know, the 6 realms of cyclic existence and reincarnation and karma. I'm like, God, I should have just said she's gone to heaven. So yeah, it's tricky, but I find now that they're 7, like things are starting to really stick with them, but that can be scary. It can be a bit socially weird, you know. Like the other day they were watching Shrek the Third with their friend Joseph, who's just turned 4. And this frog was dying, this frog king or something. I don't know if you know the movie. And Joseph went, what's happening? And my son Louis said, oh, he's dying. And he goes, he's dying? What do you mean he's dying? And Louis goes, well, Joseph, we'll all die one day. That's just part of life. And Joseph's little world just came crumbling down. And he went and found his dad. And his dad was like, oh, God, it's fine. You're not dying. Relax. So, yeah, it's tricky. It's tricky to know what to tell them and what to just not bother them with, isn't it? But I feel like I tell them the truth. When Pop was really sick 2 weeks ago and I genuinely thought he was going to die, and they asked me, I said, yes, I think he's going to die. Yeah, I think he's going to die, and we're all going to die one day, guys. That's just life. Cop that, Joseph. But Pop's better. Pop got better.
And do you teach them things about intention, like you said, or about karma? How do you explain that to them?
Well, just the basic, what you put out comes back. How would you feel if that were you? Putting yourself in other people's shoes and really trying to feel it. How would you feel if somebody said that to you? And my son hangs out with these really bitchy little girls, and sometimes they tease his sister. Having twins is great. Because they've got the same peer group and they both come home and tell you the same story from different perspectives. And so we're able to sort of turn a lot of stuff like that into lesson learning stuff, and about karma and the importance of putting positivity out there if you want good stuff to come back to you. It's kind of cool, imaginative stuff for kids, I think. I'm sure when they're 16, they'll start questioning it and tear down all of my arguments and be atheists. But at the moment, it's pretty good.
Yes. All right, last question. What do you think the Buddha would think about your book?
Gosh. Oh, of course he'd be so kind about it. He'd probably think, oh, good on her for having a go. That's probably what he'd think. Yeah, you always have to remember that. Again, as a Christian, we're raised with a sort of like punishing God. And so I oftentimes bring my Christian experience to it and go, oh, God, what would Buddha say? And people contact me on Facebook a lot and criticise me for making money from Buddhism and all that. And oh, my God, if you only knew how much money I've lost on this website. But that's okay. Like, that's my passion, and I want to create more and more things for people online to access Buddhism. So I don't mind doing that, but it's like, dude, I'm not making $1 million off Buddha. But I think... I don't think Buddha would say that. He was a pretty cruisy guy, very forgiving, and my intention is generous, and I know that in my heart, so I think he'd think I'm a nice lady having a go. Yeah.
I think my favourite line in this, which I'm sure Buddha would love too, is when you said, wisdom and compassion go together like Netflix and chill. That was just, who better to put Buddhism into a modern understanding for the average schmuck like myself. So I obviously have so many more questions, but I'm going to open up for questions from the audience now, because I'm sure you have a lot of questions. So what I'm going to ask is if you could just put up your hands, and the roaming ushers will come to you in due time. Does anyone want to start off?
Don't be shy. You're hot. It's melted your brain.
If it helps, people have asked Meshel incredibly personal questions at other events, and she was really fine with it.
I am fine with it. I've done breakfast radio for a long time. I've spoken about everything that's happened in my life. No matter what happens to me, good or bad, I go, great, I can use that tomorrow.
So if you could provide her with a bit of radio fodder, that would be good.
Great. Yesterday I had a fight with a lollipop lady. Because I just had one of those days, this is #mumlife, you'll understand this. I had to get to school so early because the pickup is a nightmare. You can't get parks.
Yes.
I was about to walk out the door with plenty of time. The builder shows up. He wants to chat with me about something. Oh, God, all right, come on. So the next thing, I'm late. I'm stressed. My son has to get to his tutor, and then I'm yelling at the lollipop lady out the front of the school, and she's yelling back, and this mum's unpacking her baby, loving it sick, loving the drama. And I'm thinking, oh, okay, I need to stop and think about what's wrong with me. Why am I doing this? Yes, the lollipop lady is annoying and thinks she's a cop, but she can bar down and just worry about the big stick. But But you know what? She's not my problem. She's not my business. Why am I acting like this? It was a great opportunity to practice and take a deep breath and say, okay, I'm stressed. I'm up against this pressure that actually doesn't exist. It's actually fine. If I do another lap of the block and the kids are waiting an extra 4 minutes, it's fine.
Yeah.
If we get to the tutor 4 minutes, 5 minutes late, it's fine. You know?
How often do you still have to have those little conversations with yourself?
Constantly.
So it's not instinct yet to be.
It's instinct
in
to have
nirvana.
the conversation.
Yeah, right.
It's instinct to have the conversation now, which I think is a great step. So yes, usually I can have the conversation before I'm yelling at a lollipop lady, but I didn't make that yesterday. Missed that point. But that's where I'm at with my practice, and it's made me a much better person.
Did your breakup make you a better Buddhist?
Yes, because I just spent 6 months deeply immersed in researching Buddhism, and it was so great. I never would have done that otherwise.
And did it also sort of put you consistently in those positions where you had to just, hang on a minute, stop, remove myself?
And when you're negotiating the big things like your ex, the other things just seem like a breeze. That's sort of Buddhism. That's sort of like when you can get to the point where you can stay calm through a big drama. Little dramas are just a breeze. Whereas without Buddhism, little dramas are freaking me out. I'm stressing myself. I'm anxious. I'm angry. Yeah, you know.
So you definitely feel calmer?
Yeah. Okay. I didn't yesterday, but I do in general, yes.
Is there much of a concept of atonement or apology in Buddhism? Like, so do you feel now you need to go and apologise to the lollipop lady?
Oh, I never thought of that actually. No, I don't know.
I wouldn't take it that far.
I don't know if I'd take it that far. There is definitely that because that sort of again ties into anxiety and depression. If I'm feeling depressed, I wrote this in the book, I didn't make this up, there's an old saying that says if I'm depressed, it means I'm living in the past. If I'm anxious, it means I'm living in the future. So if I'm depressed, feeling down and mopey, I have to sit with myself and go, okay, why? What's wrong? Why are you feeling mopey? I'm feeling mopey because I'm embarrassed because I said something stupid or rude to somebody. Well, you know, would apologising fix it? For either one of you, then apologise. You know? You're so right. I should apologise to the lollipop lady.
Well, what do I know? I'm the second tier religion, remember?
Yeah, you are, but you've nailed Buddhism there, babes. You should come across. It's good. It's good over here.
Questions? Yep, up the back. Yep.
Hello, Meshel and Susan. It's made me think about happiness versus peace, but what about safety? In all this, do you feel safe? And with your kids, how do you make them feel safe?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And I make no bones about the fact that in relationship breakups, safety is an issue for a lot of people. Fortunately, I'm not one of them. But that's where the pragmatism and the being sensible, this is this idea of compassion and wisdom going together like Netflix and chill. So what I'm advocating is trying to be compassionate toward everyone, even people who've hurt you. But you must apply wisdom with that. If it is unsafe for you to be with somebody or even for them to know where you live, you can be compassionate from a distance. You know, it's all about settling your feelings of negativity and finding a way to be sending positive feelings out there to that person. But you don't have to be near them. You don't have to give them an opportunity to hurt you. Does that help? Okay.
Any other questions?
This man here had one.
Hi. You said before all great religions are very similar. So what was it about Buddhism that drew you and not another one?
I think as a child I didn't appreciate, I was raised Catholic and at a very early age I felt as though I wasn't seeing Jesus' teachings reflected in the Catholics around me. My mum is a good person and she is a devoted Catholic. But as a young person, things are so black and white, you know? So, and this was even before Royal Commissions and before all sorts of things. So I had no idea. But to me, I just felt as though it just wasn't jiving. The people that around me who were Catholics weren't jiving with the teachings of this wonderful man who lived a life of, poverty and generosity and lived for underdogs. I wasn't seeing that reflected in the Catholics around me at the time. So that put me off Catholicism. I was furious and angry and hated it and thought it was stupid. I don't anymore, but certainly that's what sent me looking for. And then when I found Buddhism, I realised that Buddhist teachings and Jesus' teachings are so similar. In fact, there is a conspiracy theory that during the lost years, Jesus went away and became a Buddhist monk. Now, I'm not going to pressure you into that one, but it's a bit of fun to think about, isn't it? So I think actually my Christianity, it made sense to me. It just made sense to me, and you and I have spoken about this before. I can't explain exactly why, but the more I read about Buddhism, the more I felt like I was remembering it rather than learning it. Was I a terrific Buddhist in a past life? Is that what you're wondering? I probably was. I probably was a High Lama. I had the opportunity to ask His Holiness the Dalai Lama once if he thought maybe I was very heavily tattooed in a past life because I really like tattoos. And he said no. And I think he sort of went on to say, you don't understand much about reincarnation. But, yeah.
Yep.
Hi, Meshel. I'm so interested to hear you talk earlier about anger and having been angry for a long time and still sometimes being angry. And, I grew up in a Christian faith where with good girls and nice girls did never vent anger, never spoke in anger, didn't look in anger. And I wonder if you can just talk a bit more about anger and growing up and
that's such a good
being
point,
a girl.
because that made me angrier. When I wasn't allowed to express my anger as a teenage girl, I was like, I thought that was so rude when my parents would sort of, not want me to express my anger. It just made me angrier. It made me want to lash out. And you see that in kids. My son strolled up the front steps the other day and saw my daughter's Star Wars sunglasses sitting out on our porch, and he picked them up and snapped an arm off them. And I was like, what the hell, man? He goes, I'm just really angry that she got the front seat. So we got to have this conversation about, well, you can't do that. You can't. Firstly, give me back those Shopkins I just bought you. And secondly, okay, you have to express your anger. You have to tell me, oh, I'm feeling so angry, and we can talk about it and we can release it. We don't have to. This is what happens when we're angry. We walk around with anger. That's how we're reacting in the world. We're yelling at the lollipop lady because we've got this vile vibe about us, and we're creating bad karma for ourselves. So in my interaction with the lady the other day, I've just created bad karma for myself. I've created a worse situation where the mum with the baby's just gone inside and told everyone she saw Meshel from the radio losing her shit outside. I'm just creating bad circumstances and bad future things for myself by walking around with anger. So it is about expressing it. It is about allowing yourself, looking at your anger, not suppressing it, not saying I'm not allowed to be angry because I'm a girl. Why am I angry? Why am I really angry? I'm really angry because I planned my day wrong, because I've, again, packed too much stuff in this day and I haven't achieved half of what I wanted to achieve, and now I can't get a park, and, that's why I'm really angry. That's my big challenge at the moment, is trying to not overload myself, because that is that creates negative emotions in me and negative behaviour in me.
What would be the Buddhist teaching that could help you with that? What's really going on with
Yes.
you overloading? What's going on there? This has become Dr. Phil.
Yeah. Yeah, why is it so important to me to be busy all the time? I like to stay busy, I like to stay productive, and it's that I lack common sense in this area. I want to be helpful and productive, and I feel like life is too short and I'm going to run out of time for everything. It's not very sensible, and I have to accept my limitations. It's really hard for me
Because
to
it's
do.
not giving you peace, is it?
No. I find it very hard to sit still and try and chase peace.
So is this the next book then? This sounds like this is the next Buddhist issue you need to tackle.
It is definitely. The book that I'm writing at the moment is the, balance, work,
It
life.
is what you're doing.
It is what I'm doing. It is what I'm doing. And I'm getting worse at it the more I try and write this book and fit in the writing of the book.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, God, another book.
The ultimate irony.
That is my challenge at the moment. Yeah, definitely. I've got to calm down, slow down, man. It's hard.
It is hard.
Particularly, I say my dream is one day to live in a monastery and just sweep and cook for the monks. And my ex-husband goes, oh, yeah, I can just see that happening, yeah.
But I actually wondered that. Would you take your religious commitment so seriously that you would consider becoming a nun, for example?
I don't think...
Taking your vows or...
I know a lady who's not long been ordained and she has grown-up kids, and she was just started going to the Buddhist centre here in Brighton, and it just spoke to her, and over the course of the years, she's taken it to that level. It's interesting, we were chatting about her children are really struggling with it, about how to relate to her now. So I don't think that's in my future, but who knows? Who knows? I am changing, Susan. I am changing every moment. Who knows? I might become a Muslim. I'm not changing that much. I don't have the face for it. How good's a face? You've got to have such a good face for the scarves. I don't have the face for the scarf.
Oh, this is awkward. Any more questions? Please, there's some up the front here.
You can hold it back.
Hi. You have a lovely face for the job.
Yeah, but I need height. I need hair. Like it's just, yeah.
Poof there. I was wondering if you were to go to a monastery, or if anybody that was female was, is there a reason why in Buddhism, I think if you're a chick and you've been doing it for 20 years as a nun, you're like lower classes, lower than a man who is it on their first day? Because I wanted to do it and I was confused about that.
Buddhism is traditionally a patriarchal religion, definitely, like all others. And I think it's because Buddha wasn't himself. He ordained women himself in his lifetime. But as with Christianity and certainly Catholicism, it grew into this situation where socially people would just send sons number 3, 4, 5 and 6 to the monastery. Yeah. Because they couldn't afford to feed them and keep them and all that kind of stuff. So it was sort of, and growing up Catholic, a lot of Catholic families did the same thing. Brother number 2 or 3 went and became a priest, which is probably how we ended up with so many unhappy and socially weird men as priests, right? Because it wasn't a vocation, it wasn't a calling. It wasn't something they grew up wanting to do. It was just kind of standard social issue. So in these traditional Asian families, girls stay home to take care of their parents and get married and have more children, and the subsequent boys go off to the monastery. So you just end up with many, 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 many monks and not so many nuns. But His Holiness has really, really invested in this issue. And this year, for the first time, he ordained female geshis. Now, geshis in the Tibetan system are like university lecturers. They're very well-educated monks, and they've put in years and years of study. And this is the first year women are being ordained as geshis. So he is really pushing that. Not geishas. No, different. Very different. We're lucky we have a number of great geshis in Melbourne, by the way. There's Geshe Doga in Brighton, and Geshe Sonam in Torquay, who I go and visit. He's my teacher. So we've got some very high teachers in Melbourne.
Was there much pushback within the Buddhist community when the Dalai Lama did ordain those women?
Not that I know of. Mm-hmm. I'm not probably, that sort of tapped into monastery gossip, but but not that I know of.
Yeah.
Certainly not publicly, no. And when I was at this event in India, everyone was stoked. And there was a big ceremony that day. He ordained some female geshis that day, and it was very exciting. Yeah.
Any more questions
He's
before
pretty
we wrap
onto
up?
it, the old boy.
Okay. Well, if there's no more questions, this is probably a great time to tell you. Number one, you can buy, it's good karma, buy some of her books.
It is.
Meshel, you can purchase them up the back. For Metropolis Books are running that. And good luck for the next book and the next spiritual discipline. This is a great book. about the human condition. I can tell you that. It's not just about breakups at all, and I cannot tell you how much I enjoy this book. It is an absolute delight, and so are you.
Thank you.
So
You're
please,
the first
thank you,
PhD
Meshel.
to tell me that. I'm so flattered. So flattered. Doctor, thank you. Thank you.
Visit wheelercentre.com for the best in books, writing and ideas from Melbourne, Australia and the world.